Okay, great. We're here, we're live, we're filming again, and this is tip 4. Thanks for coming back and watching all the tips, and I hope you've been able to get inspired and incorporate a few of these tips, or just be able to start thinking about them and how to incorporate them. So today's tip 4, and tip 4 is build each brick carefully, okay? And that's really important. So there's a lot of sayings out there that sort of like relate to this, like every journey begins with the first step, or in order to grow a garden you have to tend to it, or the one I like is I hear, I forget, I see, I remember, I do, I understand. So those are like 3 things you can think about. But really what I'm getting at here is that in traditional Chinese medicine school, every class is helping you to form a brick so that you can build yourself into a TCM provider, right? So every brick is important. And when you get to the end of this, you will see, oh, here's an area where I had a weakness. My brick wasn't very good, very strong, and so I may have a little bit of a problem. And whether you agree or not, that the way that traditional Chinese medicine is taught here in the United States, it isn't, I mean, some people feel like it's not effective and it's not traditional in itself, but it's still a way in which they have been able to get a lot of students through programs. So trust your teachers. They have a plan in mind for you, even though you may feel like that didn't work out very well, or this would have been a lot easier to learn if I would have known that. Because you, unlike other programs, every class you go to is a class that builds on itself. And if you take something from each class and you try to review and refresh and then take it to the next class, how does it relate to this? How does it relate to that? You'll find that this process becomes so much easier. Your first year is just completely overwhelming with everything that's new. The second year gets better, and the third year gets even better. So it's really important that you take the time to build each brick carefully, right? So that you have good foundational knowledge, and that you go back to that foundational knowledge on a pretty regular basis. So single herbs, for example, you go through single herbs, I think in your second year you're done, and you start on formulas. But you still need to go back and understand single herbs. At least in the year that I took the herbs test, the NCCAOM herbs test, it's more about single herbs than it is about formulas. So if you spend a whole year and you don't go back and just do review of single herbs, it's going to be very difficult for you to pack it all in 3 weeks before you have to take a board. So one of the tricks that I did that I found to be very helpful was when I started my formulas classes and other classes, that all classes will have some kind of formula in them, whether it's a review class or a history class or a formulas class, or whatever class they call it. You're gonna go back and review formulas. So what I did was I took a book, a very small book, and I wrote down every single NCCAOM formula in the book, and I categorized them, not in alphabetical because that's too hard to remember, by function. And then as I went through, for 2 years, as I went through these classes, if the teacher, so it made me get familiar with the names of the formulas, and then it made me be able to find them in my book, right? So every time a teacher would talk about a formula that I knew was going to be on the exam, I would open up my book, read what I've already written. Maybe they had a little jewel or something that would be helpful to help me remember how to use the formula, and I would write that down. And then I could take that book anywhere I went, and if I wanted to review formulas on clear heat, I could open my book and look at those formulas. So that was a very helpful hint for me, and it made, I didn't even take a review class on formulas. I just studied my book. I studied single herbs again, and that's what got me through. So this isn't like your undergraduate program where you finish a class, you sell your book, and you take the final, and then you immediately dump everything in your brain so you can go take the next class. This is not like that. In this program, really they structure it so that nearly every class adds to your body of knowledge, to your brick, your foundations, so that you can get to the end of this and really have a good understanding. Because at the end of this, after the test, it's really about you being a provider. So that's all I have for tip 4. I hope that you make it over to tip 5. It's probably, I think, the best one I have yet. So, all right. Good night. Have a wonderful evening or day or morning, whatever it is that you're doing. I hope it's wonderful, and thanks again.